Hey everyone, it's Dan and Don, and we are from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Once again, that website address is www.theclinicaltrialsguru.com, the internet's best place for clinical trials content and information. We interview guest gurus all the time. Today's no different. We're very lucky to have Diana. She is the CEO and founder of D. Anderson and Company. And they recently merged with another company, and she's going to kind of talk to us about that. But she does patient recruitment. Her company focuses on clinical trial patient recruitment, amongst many other things. They've been very successful. They've been around for a long time. They know what they're doing, obviously, and Diana has a lot of knowledge on clinical trials, specifically clinical trial recruitment. And we've never actually had a guest guru, what we call our guest, a guest guru on that speaks specifically about recruitment. We've had doctors on, we've had study coordinators on, we've had study participants. Never a recruitment specialist, so I think it's very important for you guys out there to catch this interview because you'll get some great content out of it. And so with that being said, I welcome Diana to the show. Welcome, Diana.
Well, thank you very much, Dan and Don. I'm honored to be your first patient recruitment guru today.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. It's something that I don't know why we haven't had someone on. We had Don on. He's on all the time, and he kind of does recruitment. So,
but I think they're tired of seeing my face.
And Don, you're focused primarily working with recruitment at a large research sites, correct?
I actually used to be with California Clinical Trials, who were purchased by Par Excel. Mm-hmm. I headed up their community outreach program.
Mm-hmm. So we probably practice a lot of the same principles, but on a global scale.
Okay.
So at D. Anderson and Company, soon to be known as DAC Patient Recruitment Services, mm-hmm. as you had mentioned, we were very recently acquired by Imperial Clinical Research Support Services, a company that's been in business a lot longer than we have. We've been at this for about 20 years.
Wow. In
the site management and patient recruitment business, and Imperial's been in business some 75 years. So with that merger, allows us to grow into expand a number of areas that we've been providing, and we can talk more about that later. But we do focus on patient recruitment and retention in the global sense of the strategy required to execute around the world.
Okay. And we'll definitely get into DAC a little more. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how you got started in clinical trials, and how you ended up founding the company?
Sure. Let's see if I can give you kind of a quick overview. The company, D. Anderson and Company, as a site management, as I mentioned, recruitment firm, we've been in operation since the early 90s. This is our 19th year. And we actually started out, started out founding Rheumatology Research International, a site management company with several other rheumatologists, and we formed one of the first site management networks back in around 1990. About 10 years ago, we were successful as a site management company, but we're very niche focused, and we found that much of what we were doing, in addition to site selection and feasibility, was actually helping support sites in the area of patient recruitment. So about 11 years ago now, we moved exclusively into the area of patient recruitment and retention, and D. Anderson and Company was launched at that time, and within 30 days, we did $1 million of new business with our existing clients because they were really looking to us to move out of rheumatology and form more organized recruitment strategy in different therapeutic areas. So it's probably fair to say that one of the differentiating factors of the company is that our roots are deeply embedded in the area of working very closely with investigator sites. So I started my career at a site. We formed Rheumatology Research International as an outgrowth of that site. And today I still am a part owner of that research site that's here in Dallas, Texas, and it's known as Metroplex Clinical Research Center.
Okay.
So I kind of fell into clinical research as a result of some work I was doing in marketing with a group of physicians. But my background is academically is actually my doctorate degree happens to be in research and statistics in the area of nursing. So I started out as a nurse. So the career development was a good fit for me over the years.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. It seems like, what kind of made you guys pivot from just having the site that actually does the clinical trials to recruiting and working with sponsors on managing sites? What kind of, was it a natural progression, or did you have an idea and just decided to pivot? How did that come about?
We had a very large site. My first work personally was in the running and managing and growing of a large rheumatology site. And one of the key elements, it seemed early on, 20 years ago, about 20-some years ago, is when you saw the organized concept of patient recruitment being developed kind of in a small way, which has evolved into a very big enterprise. Some $2.9 billion are quoted as being spent in 2009 in the area of patient recruitment by pharma and biotech. So, I can say personally that one of the first things I gleaned in running a site, and one of the first things I did was go out and hire patient recruitment staff. And today, 20 years later, we still see 80% of clinical trials delayed, and the primary factor stated for those delays is still patient enrollment and recruitment. So it did, very much seem like a natural progression to put more arms and legs around comprehensive and organized strategy and tactics to support enrollment of patients in a cost-effective and timely way.
Dan, if I may ask, this is Don. Where do you identify the problem? Is it at the sites, or is it with the sponsor when it comes to that lack of recruitment that's holding up a lot of clinical studies?
Well, Don, that's a $1 million question. The magic bullet question. There are so many variables in this field. It really, and it's becoming more complex all the time as we face multiple regulatory factors. We work around the world. We're faced with new issues in protocol design and development. We're working in highly targeted orphan diseases, orphan indications. So the selection of sites and how experienced a site may be, you add all these outside variables, for example, the design of a protocol to the type of sites you're working with, what sort of patient population they may have, what's available to help support the sites. There are, a myriad of factors involved, and so there's no real one single area to say, well, this is the core reason why we don't see enrollment speeding up in the industry. There are so many factors involved. But essentially, at the end of the day, the sites are going to, you can have an extremely well-budgeted patient recruitment plan, mapped out, laid out, executed, but at the end of the day, you do need the sites to engage and to follow up and to enroll those patients. So there are many, many factors that truly do point back to the work with sites.
Okay.
Now, as far as these niche studies, you guys pretty much specialize in the very difficult to enroll studies. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct?
Well, we're never hired when it's easy to enroll.
Okay. So for a regular, let's say, major depressive disorder study where it seems like a lot of people could potentially qualify, sponsors would not necessarily go to you guys, but they would go to you for something extremely specific.
Dan, that's absolutely true. For DAC, quite honestly, as I said, we're never hired when its enrollment is easy, but we are players that specialize more in highly targeted, difficult-to-enroll programs. So, we're not a direct-to-patient database, for example, model, where multiple strategies are normally going to be required to recruit patients on the programs we work with. So enrollment is difficult. Oftentimes we might be looking for just a handful of patients versus several hundred, although we do work on large trials as well.
Right.
We're also working on, for example, we have a project right now that we're just looking to enroll 8 patients around the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you, and I understand that a lot of this stuff is, proprietary information, but how would you just give us a general idea of how you would go about helping sites recruit for one of these very niche type of studies? What are some of the things you guys might do?
Sure. Again, always the work is always highly customized and planned around working closely with the client and what they always know their patient population best, and coupling that with historical metrics that may relate to a given population. But we find in many cases in highly targeted programs, for something, let's say like myasthenia gravis or some specific form of cancer, some exotic disease, you're not going to be going out direct to the masses, right?
Right.
So you're going to be developing methodology that works. You're working closely with the sites, working closely with potential referring physicians, and then different types of communities, patient communities or caregiver communities, would be one way to bundle the types of services that are required.
Okay. So it's very much grassroots. It's not just like a matter of putting out a TV ad and hoping that the phone rings. It's very specific, very like laser-like focus almost on this just very specific population. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys do a lot of hand holding with the investigational sites.
Well, I wouldn't really call it so much, Don, hand-holding, but working really closely. So,
okay.
And sites are very busy folks. And patient recruitment is just one element, as we all know, of what they're trying to accomplish. So we may we start out all of our work assessing sites and individually and trying to understand their needs, and then coupling that with customized programs that are based on generalized factors that may come into play. So we're working hands-on in many cases, as you said, with the sites, and then we're also implementing strategy to support groups of sites as a whole. Okay. So sites, when we deliver, for example, if we were to deliver some physician referral strategy, if that is left to a site, they think that's a good idea and they'd like to help, but they end up not having time. In many cases, when we put together strategy and help support the sites, and then we execute, the results are significantly better, significantly greater, because you have people who, that's all they do, is focus in this area.
Okay. And it seems like you guys are doing a very good job. I'm just going to go over some of the awards and honors you guys got. 2010 International AVA Awards for Creative Excellence.
Right.
Pharma Voice, which is a huge thing. It's 100 Most Inspiring People in the Life Science Industry. And Diana got that in 2006. They got GCP Awards finalists numerous times, so it's obvious you guys are doing the right thing, and you guys obviously know what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
When you work with communities, what have you seen as being the biggest misconception around clinical trials?
Well, frankly, the metric still holds up in this country. So you can imagine what it's like in other countries, because there's more awareness of clinical trials in the U.S. So only 75% of people, 75% of people in the U.S. have never even heard of a clinical trial.
Wow.
So, you're starting out with a sort of grassroots education types of information and programs, and you can't forget that when you're developing direct-to-patient-driven materials. So the message has to be at least partially about not just your trial, but the whole idea of understanding and the awareness of clinical trials to begin with. I think it's a fair misconception in some cases. Just take the whole idea of physician referral, which is so important. So if a physician refers a patient to a clinical trial, an external physician, referring physician, It stands to reason that the chances that that patient may randomize into the trial are far greater than just general, throwing out a wide net, right?
Right.
So most folks think that physicians don't refer because they want to keep their patients. They're afraid of losing their patients. And actually, studies show that over 50% of physicians surveyed, the reason they didn't refer into a clinical trial was they just didn't know about it, or they didn't really even know about clinical trials to begin with.
Right. Awareness. Just general awareness.
And I find too that when I worked with a lot of physicians out in the community, they're extremely busy. What I felt that was effective for me was actually getting them to identify somebody in the office that I could directly work with, and that way they could sort of pull the coattail of that physician. You have so and so here, and I think you may want to look at them for clinical trials, because I know here in California, you go into a physician's office and they're running from room to room, and a lot of times I find it's not that they don't want to refer. It's just not directly on their mind. They're just trying to take care of what's going on at hand.
And we try to make that in our world. We try to make that strategy extremely easy for the referring physician.
Very good.
And try to provide general information and referral strategy that makes it easy, because you're absolutely right. And also in niche-focused, cutting-edge trials, many physicians, if they do have an awareness, and you're able to get the message to them through something maybe like e-messaging, or some electronic version of getting general information to physicians, for example, that might be, in some cases, that's a better way of getting your message out.
Yeah, there's certainly different strategies. The one interview I did without Don was this guy, and you missed out, man, because I interviewed this guy, and I'm forgetting his name. I'm sorry, but he's created Clinical Trial Select. It's a search engine for life-threatening clinical trials. So if you're a person with a life-threatening illness, you can look up trials in your area. And he told me that in this population, over 50% of the time, clinical trial would be the best alternative, but it's only offered 3% of the time. And that stems back to physician awareness. So he's trying to help out by having the people print out a lot of information from their home and then bringing that into their doctor so that they can kind of get educated then and there. Because if you just wait passively for a doctor to refer you, it's only going to happen 3% of the time in those cases. So very good point, Diana.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and we all know exactly, and I'm familiar with that group. I've looked at their website.
Okay.
Oh, forgive me, I lost my train of thought there where I wanted to go. It'll come back to me.
Okay.
On to the next topic. But
yeah, it was very interesting.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I wanted to mention, Don or Dan, one of you asked about communities, and kind of along the point, Dan, that you were making. Have you looked at some of the patient communities, like Patients Like Me?
Yes, we're trying.
Communities of patients that have opted in to receive health information and information about clinical trials, for example. So those are additional new opportunities via the internet and so forth, and can be linked back to basic study websites. But there's a whole other topic, and that's the whole social networking and the web-based recruiting opportunities.
Yes, there's a lot of activity going on. The whole e-patient movement. We've had e-patient Dave on before, and he's definitely, he talked to us a lot about these different kind of communities out there. And those are good, and it's good that it's growing, but there's still this whole problem of awareness that affects most of the people out there. Like you said, 75%, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's still a lot of work to be done in this industry. Can you tell us a little bit about your guys' future plans? Are you guys, I know you guys recently merged. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, Imperial brings to us a new bandwidth in a significant number of areas, and I'll mention a couple because they are a really important fit for us as we are to continue to grow our global footprint and our global presence, and that is really a key element for us in terms of our growth. So we right as of today, we've executed and worked in some 66 countries. So you can imagine the complexity and the amount of work going into the developing of messaging and just materials in and of themselves, which is only a small part of what we do, but the translation of materials and the shipping and the fulfillment and the tracking and the message changes and so forth, and how all that is orchestrated. Some of our projects are as large as 30, 40 countries, 300 sites involved, 1,200 patients, not an unusual scope and size of a program. So what our new model brings to us, one thing right off the top is Imperial has their own translation group, 8 people on the ground here in the U.S. and several hundred people that are networked into our own translation services, and they focus solely on life science translation. So although we were offering translations, of course, in the past, it was outsourced. Quality and control and management was something that was very labor-intensive, which now we'll be able to bring a more cost-effective, tightly wound model in translations. And their firm also, one of the things that they do is they're a very large print house, and they work all over the world with offices in the UK. So they immediately bring to us the presence and the additional presence in Europe, as well as the ability to mobilize, track, and ship and fulfill, again, our materials all over the world in a more cost-effective, highly controlled manner. Mm-hmm. So we've had some of our clients say, well, wow, you just shortened the timeline and shortened and have made things simplified for me as far as the ability to one-stop shop in a number of areas that we did not bring to the table with this kind of bandwidth in the past.
Very
so
good.
The future will hold that emphasis on the global growth, most definitely.
Okay. And now, kind of transitioning into the whole social media thing, do you guys have a strategy for... Is that something on your radar? Is that something that you guys have already started doing? I know you brought up Patients Like Me. Is there anything else similar to that?
Yeah, certainly social media and recruitment through social media avenues is high on the radar. We've been practicing those strategies now for a couple of years. Certainly study-specific websites, quite common, but now with the outreach of social media. I just finished last 3 months, I think I was in 3 different countries giving presentations on that very topic. And as you can probably imagine, it's a hot topic. Everybody's interested. You can fill the room with that topic. And there's, I think that as we move into those new areas and without true regulatory guidelines for us to fall back on, as in the case with many of the deliverables in recruitment, we guide ourselves conservatively with best practices and ethics and regulatory principles that we can measure. But I would say that we proceed cautiously in those areas because there's great upside, but there's also a whole myriad of areas that must be taken into consideration as far as risk is concerned as well.
Right. Yeah. It seems to be the sentiment across the entire industry, but it's definitely something that must be looked at over the next few years. Diana, we'd like to thank you very much for coming on today. And if anyone would like to check out their website, it's theandersoncompany.com, and we're going to definitely have the links on our blog when we put this video up. And as you can see, clinical trial, patient recruitment, there's a whole industry around this stuff, and here we are speaking to one of the best. So thank you very much, Diana.
Thank you, Dan Don. It was a pleasure.
Oh, same here, Diana. I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's hard work, but we're passionate about it.
Well, as they used to tell me, someone has to do it, and as long as you don't mind being the one, that's quite all right.
Thank you, Bull.
You're welcome.
And we'll just sign off here. It's Dan and Don from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks a lot.